Welcome to Collective SOULversations. I'm Jody Jones, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this amazing journey exploring spirituality, healing, and personal growth. With over 15 years of experience as a psychic medium and energy healer, I've made it my mission to help people connect with their true selves, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. In every episode, I chat with incredible guests who bring their own unique stories and insights to the table. We dive into different tools and practices that can help support you on your path of self discovery. So, whether you're just starting out or you've been in this journey for a while, Collective SOULversations is all about creating a friendly and welcoming space for us to explore the mysteries of the soul together. So, grab your favorite cup of tea, get comfy, and let's dive into this enlightening adventure together. Hey, everybody, welcome to Collective SOULversations. I am your host, Jody Jones, and I have a lovely guest with us today that I've had the privilege of knowing for quite some time, and I'm excited that I get to share her with you guys today. So, I'm going to introduce my dear friend, and then we'll bring her on, and you guys get to explore everything that we're going to unpack together. So we're welcoming Melanie Cocciardi, and she has been offering her open hearted approach to the healing and wellness industry since 2001. In 2012, she founded Whisper Lane Wellness, located in East Scariffraxa, Ontario, Canada, which is located on a beautiful retreat like setting. And the warm and welcoming wellness studio is dedicated to the purpose of healing. Whether in person or virtual, clients are welcome to book various healing sessions by appointment only. Mel is the lead practitioner offering energy healing sessions in the traditional techniques of UC Reiki, and Mel specializes in bringing about personal awareness, enlightenment, and harmony to those who seek transformation and growth. Past life exploration is also offered, as are spiritual mediumship readings, microcurrent energy meridian balancing treatments, and workshops. Client sessions are personalized, intimate, and offer a profound healing experience that encourages the balancing of energies on the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental bodies. Teaching since 2008, Mel offers all levels of UC Reiki classes, providing an opportunity for others to explore, learn, and become certified energy healing practitioners. Mel is fully committed to her work and her clients. She brings a unique perspective to healing sessions by combining her personal spirituality with age old techniques and wisdom. Through her workshops, classes, and various events, she consistently develops her own craft by working closely with experts in other wellness modalities. With compassion, empathy, and patience, she has assisted many individuals on their personal journey to wellness. Welcome, my friend. Welcome, Mel. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the intro. Nice to see you.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited to be able to share space with such a good friend who
Yes.
how long have we known each other? It feels like lifetimes, but
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. Well, in this lifetime, maybe are we going on 10 years or 8 years or something like that?
yeah,
8 years,
yeah.
maybe something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a while for
Yeah.
sure. So I'm glad that your schedule opened up and we have aligned so that you can come in and sit and chat with us because the services that you offer and the way that you offer and the way that you work is truly a gift. And so I feel like it's really important for people to see your light and be able to share. You can share your wisdom and your experiences. And so I know, and I just, talked about the Mel who is, the teacher, the guide, the guru, the healer, all of that. But there's always a backstory, right? There's
Yeah.
always so, how did Mel get to be where she is and how did that show up for you? And I know a little bit, but I felt like today when I was doing the connecting, I was like, maybe I'm going to learn some things about Mel today that I don't know. You know how sometimes when you have friends, you like you like take for granted all of that stuff because maybe you've heard it a few times, but I'm going to be listening with open ears today to the
Cool.
new. So
Okay.
take us back in time and tell us, how did you end up doing the work that you're doing? Well, like what brought you
Sure.
here?
So all the baggage that brought me here. Okay.
Right.
Taking me back in time. Um, Geez, well, I'll probably jump around. I feel like as time goes on and we do our healing, there's bits and pieces that we forget that we even had to trudge through.
Yeah.
For myself, from a very early age, I was energy sensitive and grew up in a family and a household that was energy sensitive. My mom has was clairvoyant and often had immense psychic experiences as I was growing up. Um, it's funny, not too long ago, just a couple of years ago, actually, I was having some memories flood back. And I was remembering this time when we moved into this house. I was young and I was reminiscing about this wonderful experience I had when we moved into the new house. The children who used to live there were still there. And I got to play with them in the basement. I remember the old Barbies and the old Barbie horses. And so I messaged my mom and I said, "Do you remember that house you moved into?" And la da 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 da. And she says, "Yeah." And I said, "What were those kids' names?" And she says, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Remember the old kids that used to live in that house? They were there when we moved in, and I played with them in the basement." She said, "Mel, there were no kids in the basement." And I said, "Yes, there were. I remember there was a girl, there was a boy. This is what the lighting looked like. These are the toys we had. This was the room we were in." She says, "Mel, we moved in, the house was completely empty."
Wow.
And so from a young age, I would have those types of experiences, but I didn't obviously know at the time that they weren't real, or
Right.
they weren't human
Right. Right.
earthbound experiences. Um, so from a young age, that was my experience. And then as I got into my teens, I think I just kind of started experimenting with wellness and healing. And I was drawn to things like massage or shiatsu or booking an appointment. And I would do those things just on my own without being directed by a parent. And then by my late teens, I think I was 19 when I had my first Reiki experience. So my first Reiki on the table, hands on healing. And that was my mom,
Wow.
because my mom ended up embarking on a healing path herself and became a Reiki master. And then I just kept living my life and going about the things you do when you're in your teens and in your early 20s. And eventually, at some point, my mom did come to me and she said, "Mel, it's time. They're telling me you're supposed to do your level one." And I would go, "Ugh, whatever, Mom. What peace pipe are you smoking?" Like, uh, you do you. And anyway, after signs and little inklings here and there, I was led down the path of doing my level one training. So that was in my very early 20s. And from there on, I moved through the different levels of Reiki and eventually became a Reiki master so that I could help teach and educate others on how to use the gifts in their own life.
Mhm.
Um, I think I remember, actually, I was listening to one of your podcasts. I forget the gentleman's name. Um, and he was sharing some of his early story. And I thought, oh, geez, that's sounds so familiar to me. I remember, late in my teens, I was partying, I was having a great time, I was doing the things that kids do, exploring, experimenting with all sorts of stuff. And I did go down the path of um, partying, doing the rave scene, experimenting with drugs. And I did it for a few years. And at a certain point, I was getting bored, but I was still doing this thing. I loved the people. I was meeting some amazing people. I was having a great time.
Right.
Um, but it wasn't fulfilling me. And I remember early, one morning coming out of downtown Toronto, driving, heading home from an all night party. And I remember the way the sun was beaming through the car and the sky and the clouds. And I can see it just like as if I'm sitting here. And this moment where I recognized I want to be this high on life, not on drugs. And oh, it goes right through me as I reminisce about it. I can feel it. And it was
Yeah.
so profound for me in this moment. uh, I call it a connection to God, to the God belief that I have in, but very poignant in that moment. I felt, no, I don't need this anymore. I want to be high on life. I want to be high on life. And I didn't put all those pieces together that I was, oh, I'm going on this healing journey now. I'm going to embark on spirituality. I didn't even have those words at the time.
Right.
But it was that moment that I decided to clear out the drug use. And I started making changes. My changes were I still partied, but I stopped doing the drugs and I proved to myself that I was going for other
Mhm.
reasons.
Right.
Um, and so I did that for a series of, gosh, I don't even know if it was years after that, um, but months. And I would participate in spending time at these events, but purely sober without
Uh,
any. And from then on, I started on that energy path. I mean, it was not too long after or around that time that I did do my level 1 training. And then
yeah.
over the years, added to my toolkit.
And do you feel like though that you kind of had to have that entryway so that you could recognize, the contrast between the light and the dark? Obviously, if you're partying and you're raving and you're using drugs and alcohol, that is the dark energy. You had to
Right.
explore it, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's the dark energy. And yet, while I did experience or witness dark moments, for the bulk of it, it felt light. It didn't feel like it was a negative thing because there was lots of joy and happiness from it.
Right.
Um, would I have found the path had I not gone through that? I don't want to suggest that I hit rock bottom. I wasn't in a situation where I required, help to get out of this. This was just, it was almost like a chapter that I went
Hmm.
through, and then I
Right.
moved on from that chapter. I
Yeah.
know other people who have had, significant struggles going through that time.
Right.
Um, but I do feel like it was a very profound, and at that age too, I think being that age, like recognizing that this wasn't good enough for me. Like, I'm done
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
bored. I need to step out of this. I've done it, been there. Let's move on and find something that's even bigger and better and brighter,
Right. Yeah. More fulfilling.
more fulfilling. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you had your mom in there. Let me ask you this, just
Yeah.
because the the relationship dynamics between mothers and daughters is always so much fun, right?
Yep.
Those are I'm telling you, those are some of the toughest soul contracts, life lessons that we commit to. So what was it like for you? Because I know this for myself, and my mom wasn't an energy healer by any means, but what was it like for you growing up with somebody who was more hippie-ish or more, wasn't, your PTA mom? How was that for you growing up?
I didn't know any different. We only
Oh,
know what we know. And so I think, you know, I just knew this from a young age, and this is how we operated. And my mom has actually been one of my greatest mentors. And I often find, sometimes I forget how blessed I am having her as one of my main mentors, and my Reiki master, who has passed on teachings to me. Because when I teach students, I realize they don't have their mom just to call and say, "Hey, guess
right?
what happened today? Let's bounce this off each other. How was your work day? What
Yeah.
was your experience?" And so I recognize that oftentimes students are going back into their life and they don't have that sounding board. And
Right.
so that's been a real blessing for me. Not to say that my mom and I haven't had our moments over the years, in my younger years. Of course, there was, our parents annoy us at certain points, and we annoy them equally,
Right.
if not more, I'm sure.
Hmm.
But we've been able to have a wonderful dynamic, especially as I've gotten older and moved through some of my training with my mom, because we have a lot to talk about. Our conversations
Right.
aren't, you know, we can get into some deep talks, which is pretty cool.
Yes, absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And so then your first kind of like in was Reiki. Do you want to maybe just explain just for anybody who doesn't understand what Reiki is, or the
Yeah.
kind of like little bit of history, cuz It's a very specific type of Reiki that you learned, right? And that you
Yeah.
teach.
Yeah. So the lineage that I have practiced is Usui Reiki. And Dr. Usui was a Christian monk um, who, in the 1800s, actually worked with students, and the students would question or query him about the teachings of Christ, of Jesus Christ. Okay, so he went on this expedition to try and find the gifts and the keys to healing. Um, and as he explored this, he met, the story goes, he met obstacles and challenges along the way. And eventually, after years of searching and seeking these gifts of healing and much meditation, he was presented with the gifts and given the tools and the symbols and the techniques that could be passed on to other people so that they could learn to use the energy to heal themselves. And so uh, in Japan is where Dr. Usui was based out of. Um, and he actually trained other males at the time to practice Reiki as well. And because of the war, at some point the decision was made to start training women because there might not be enough men to pass the gifts along. And so they eventually started training women. And then one of those was actually, was she a Hawaiian American descent, I believe, Mrs. Takata. And she was responsible for bringing Reiki to the Americas and then spreading the word there. So that's kind of the lineage and how it ended up uh, in America. And
Right.
from there, many people have taken their teachings from Usui and there have been other twists that have put on it, all based on tapping into the universal life force energy that exists around us. And the practitioner has tools and techniques that we tap into to allow that energy to pass through us, through our hands, into the body of our client to help them. The idea is that the energy, this universal energy that exists around us, is being used to help restore balance within the body. So we've got our physical body, our mental body, spiritual and emotional bodies, and we have stresses, whether we recognize them or not. And that energy is used to kind of chip away and clear out those energetic blockages that we might have. I
Right.
like to equate the energy to the wind. You know, we can't necessarily see the wind, but we can see the effects of the wind. We see the leaves falling, we see the snow blowing,
Hmm.
and the wind is energy.
Right.
And essentially, we could have a broken heart, something that we can't tangibly see, or we can have a broken leg. Bones are actually broken. Whichever body we're working on, whether it's an emotional body or a physical body, the energy is helping to restore homeostasis so that the body can heal itself within itself, which I
Yeah.
believe we're designed to do.
Well, and super powerful. And I mean, you've been doing this for how many years now?
Um, 24 years.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Spirit always says to me, the proof is in the pudding. So,
Right.
if this was something that you were doing where your clients weren't having any kind of lasting effects or noticeable changes, then obviously you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing up to this day.
Yeah.
And so do you find that with your career though, sometimes I feel like it's kind of two different things. Either certain clients will just be drawn to us, they will come to us, and they'll be either very like-minded, so they'll understand, all of the stuff that we're doing and the gifts that we're sharing, or there is like like an educational component to it where you have to help them to understand that, again, like you said, because you can't see this, frequency that you're tapping into, that you're channeling and using. Has that been something that you've had to like overcome with some clients to be able to, be like, and this, I say this because this is funny, my oldest son, Jacob, and
Yeah.
Mel, Jacob.
Yeah.
So just recently, he's a busy guy. He's got, as you know, he's got a million businesses going at once, and he's doing all of this stuff. And he and his girlfriend they're going away. They actually just left today for the Dominican. And so I was noticing that his energy was like, when he'd come home on the weekends, I could like feel the static electricity around him, right? Like just this buildup of energy. Um, and so I suggested that he have a clearing and a healing done by somebody that I know and
Mm.
trust. Um, and so he was like, "Okay, mom." And then so his girlfriend Una was like, "Okay, so I'll do it too." And so they had it, and it's done remotely. So it's not, this healer's in BC, we're in Ontario. So he was a little confused by that part because he was like, "Well, don't I have to show up for an appointment with the guy? Like, how's this?" And I was like, "No, he's just going to." So, anyways, long story short, at the end of it, the ceremony was done, the healing, the clearing was done. The notes were sent to them, like of what was found and what was removed and everything. Ja- Jacob says to me, Mom, I think that thing was a scam." And I, I'm like, "No, it was." And I like, he's like, "Well, it was really vague. Like the stuff that came in was really vague." And I'm like, "Because it was not a reading. It was not
Right. Okay.
this was not a psychic reading or a mediumship reading for you. It was a clearing and a healing, which means that, yeah, there's, you didn't get
Yeah.
a big long report or a big long video." So I'm like, "So trust me, son, you'll have to recognize." And I could already feel a change in his energy. I could already feel like that kind of,
Yeah.
again, static electricity kind of had left his auric field. But I was like, "So just have a little bit of patience, cuz like things have changed energetically for you and you will start to notice this." And he
Mhm.
was like, "Okay, okay." But I'm pretty sure he was like still thinking, "Oh, my mom's crazy and she just got us scammed out of money."
I just That's so funny. I just had this conversation very recently about not treating your family, not treating your best friends, all of this. Like,
Right.
we know these things, right?
Yes.
Uh, and sometimes, you think, how are these people in my family? Have I not taught them enough at this
Right.
point? Don't they understand?
Right, right, right. I know.
I,
Yeah, that's the biggest, and it's true. Like I don't do any readings for, I mean, my,
yeah,
Paisley will come in every once in a while and be like, "Mom, pull a card for me. Bring it, like get it." And
right.
of course, you're like, "Oh, this is not going to be good," because she's the kind of client that if you don't say exactly what she wants to hear, then she's like
Yeah,
So yeah, for that reason, and also because with our friends and family, we are like so close energetically to them
yeah,
that, with any healing modality, there needs to be a certain amount of space
yeah.
in order for that. And that's why I know, and this, that distant healing is like incredibly powerful.
Incredibly. Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Sometimes more powerful than it
yeah,
is when you're in person, because when you're in person, there's all of those like human constraints, right? All
yeah.
those blocks that are up that we as energy workers need to find ways through, right?
It's true, and I say that often to clients. Especially the past few years with all of the crazy world stuff where everybody was virtual for a significant period of time,
Right.
which,
Yeah.
by the way, is not my favorite way to operate. I
Right.
like hands on.
Yeah.
I like seeing people. I like giving hugs. I like having that interaction
Right.
in the same space.
Yeah.
But it was a learning curve for some people to, educate people on how this still works, even though we're not in the same space.
Right.
I chanced to say some people's heads were blown off when they would have a distance session because they couldn't believe
Yeah.
how profound it can be. And just like you say, we don't have the chit chat, the sitting in front of each other for 10 minutes, gabbing and da 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 da. We just jump right in and get to
Right.
work right away.
Right.
And
Right.
that's one of my things to teach. Well, I say this every level, but anyway, level 2 Reiki, what I love about it, uh, one of the things in the teachings is that the students learn how to do distance healing.
Right.
And that's always fun because the students right in class get to start practicing on somebody somewhere else in the world that they don't know. And their faces are just, they light up because they recognize they've just tapped in to help somebody. And
Right.
all of the information that's coming up is pertinent to that person, but they've
Mhm.
never met. and they're
Right.
not sitting in the same room. And imagine being, a student doing that for the first time.
Right.
It's very powerful. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool? So, especially when you have new, you know, new practitioners that are coming in training with you, for them to have like that. Because I can remember, going back a lot of years when I was also, exploring that. It's interesting because I didn't ever have a, formal energy trainer. I
Yeah.
didn't. And even like, so how Mel and I met was through a mediumship circle. We were both, it was, a point in our careers where that was kind of like opening up, that calling was coming into us, spirit was giving us the, push down the stairs.
Literally. Yeah.
I don't say the nice little nudge because it's
No.
very much, the push down the stairs. But I can remember, that my, beginning of being able to like, tune in and connect with somebody energetically and having such a clear, connection and picture and feeling and just being blown away by the, we hear all the time there's a such thing as space or time. All of the time people say it,
Yeah.
but I feel like when you do the work that we do, it's an actuality. You're like, no, really, there is no such thing
No
as
such.
space or time. Yeah,
Yeah. And
for sure.
I think for you, probably, like, not everybody goes down the road of having uh, a specific educated energy healing certification program. You are already somebody who is dabbling and in, working in the energetic field in various capacities. When we're doing acupuncture, we're working with herbs, we're working with homeopathics. Those are all energetic
Hmm.
modalities. And so we're
Yes.
in that energy field. And many people, I believe, don't recognize, in some, now today, it's a little different, of course, but over the years, that these are all energies. It's not
Right.
like, oh, Reiki or energy healing of some sort is this. And then we've got acupuncture, and then we've got massage, and then we've got biofeedback. It's all energy working
Hmm.
together.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
tapped in. We're tapped in.
Yeah, absolutely. And learning how to play with the, like, I remember, so when I had three babies at home, and Paisley being my youngest, she was two. And so I had to get back to work. It was like, okay, so now, and I had been a hairdresser, that was my previous career, and doing all that stuff. Um, so I had to get back to work, and I really thought about going and becoming a social worker because, of course, I had
Mm.
three children. I thought, working in, children protection services, working, with youth on that. I thought that, just might be my calling. And and Mel's gonna laugh at this because somebody who's an empath, probably not the best choice of jobs. And I did realize that. I did realize, okay, so maybe that's not, not being able to go to work because I can't handle this, yeah, too much of it. And so I was like, I need to be doing something then. And so I looked into, and I had been really sick. Because with my third pregnancy, I was having gallbladder issues and had to work with a naturopathic doctor who used traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And we know this
Yeah.
doctor as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I was blown away by that medicine. I was like, I could go in there not feeling great, and she could literally put some needles in my body, and I would leave there feeling like $1 million. Like I was
Yeah.
brand new. I didn't understand how it worked or how it happened, but I was like, there's something real here. Like I literally walk in with pain or nausea or not feeling great. And then boom, I walk out, 45 minutes later, and I'm a new person.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know any medicine that works that fast
I
and that
know.
long lasting.
I know. And it's amazing how, with just some simple techniques or
Yes.
methods, we can
Yeah.
shift things fairly quickly in
Right.
most cases. Of course, there's other instances where, more intensive work might be required. But by
Right.
the way, I have to say, hairdressers are kind of like therapists already.
Yes.
And you and I have talked about the hairdressers before, which it makes me giggle. But
Yes.
um, like, when I would go to the hairdresser, they would book me in like at specific times when it's not super busy. And,
Right.
uh, the girl would come and do my nails at the same time so that I could get in and out really fast. And somebody said to me one day, Mel, why is the energy so intense when you're at the hairdressers? And I said, well,
Right.
think about it. Think about all the people in that room and their crown chakras are getting worked on.
Right.
This crown chakra is just being opened up. And gosh darn, if you go to the hairdressers at Christmas time or on a holiday
Right.
when
Yeah.
all of the dead loved people are trying to come through with messages.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
You
not
are
to mention
already a
the
therapist.
mirrors, right? All that you're like in, you've got a portal right there. So there's like your mirror portal. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's too
Yeah,
funny.
all of it. It's yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, I didn't recognize it again back in, because I started hairdressing when I was 19,
Mm,
and I didn't recognize this, but like later on, obviously, when I started doing the work I do, I would have clients that specifically would come like every 2 weeks for their haircuts, guys included,
yeah.
and they would sit in the chair, and you put the cape on them, and the first thing is you ask your clients, well, how are you doing? And interesting enough, that I carried this into my teachings when we were going to hairdressing school. Our teachers, and I had great teachers there, they said to us, when your client sits down in your chair, it's their time. This is That's all
Mhm.
about them. They're not paying you to hear about your stuff.
Right.
So that really stuck with me. And that was my approach. So I became a really good listener. So, my clients would sit in the chair and I would let them talk,
Right.
right? And of course, at the time, I didn't realize I was actually absorbing all of their
I just you become
stuff.
a really good sponge.
Right, right, right.
Oh,
But yeah, and then it's funny that, and it wasn't, and I need to ask you about this too, because it wasn't until I started formally doing, mediumship work, so connecting with loved ones who've passed in the spirit world. It wasn't until I started to do that next part of my
mm,
training stuff that I became really uncomfortable in places like hair salons, like
right.
really, really energetically uncomfortable. And, my hairdresser too was great. She would like try and clear out the place, or book me early in the morning when it was kind of quiet.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, and it didn't matter. And at first I thought maybe it's just that spot. Maybe it's just that. And so, over the years, I like tried a few different places to go in and, and do
Yeah.
that. And it would be the exact same experience. So were you having that kind of stuff prior to the mediumship stuff? Or do you feel like the mediumship just kind of like, that's why I say push you down the stairs? Cause
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. I think for myself, so one of the things that led me down the mediumship, okay, so working with Reiki energy or tapping into any type of energetic method opens the channels for energy to come in, whether it's the energy that's being used to heal the body or it's energy of loved ones who've passed, spirit guides, angelic beings. And so for me, working over the years, it was very common for me to be doing a Reiki healing session and have loved ones come through to visit. I didn't always understand who it was or what they were doing. I didn't necessarily have the techniques or the method of how to navigate it. I would just allow that energy to come through and share with the client
right.
and pass on messages as they came through. But I wasn't formally offering a reading connection.
Hmm.
That was never my thing. And it was years and years down the road on working with many clients, and I ended up working with a client who came to me stage 4 cancer. He was actually referred by a naturopath, uh, someone we both know, and I know he came to me because he was just appeasing his wife. She,
Right.
let's just do everything we can at this point. And I knew that because I could see it in his eyes and the way he would look at me like, what are you talking about, lady? When I'd be explaining something energetic. But
Right.
bless him, he came, and we weren't trying to cure anything. The energy healing is about helping to heal the body. It's not a means of curing. We're simply trying to help the body. And sometimes that's restoring balance to hopefully heal an illness. And sometimes it's helping to um, make transition from the earthbound to the spirit realm a little easier. And in this case, that's what his sessions were about. Anyway, fast forward after working with him, and then he passed. Actually, his wife ended up training and doing her level 1 with me so that she could do Reiki on him at home while he was hospice at home.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
It is. And he passed. This is many years ago now. And he's lighting me up as I'm talking.
Right.
Uh, he came and visited very quickly after his passing, but he was somebody who was very skeptical and apprehensive about the work that I was doing when he was
Right.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes he would come in waking moments like you and I are having right now. And oftentimes he would visit in dreams, and I would have to contact his wife and his sons with messages after and just say, this is what he's saying. I hope you understand it. And oftentimes she would say, oh my gosh, we would just had this conversation yesterday, or this is what's been transpiring. Anyway, one day he showed up and sitting with me in our waking moments. And he basically said, it's time. You need to start doing these readings for other people.
Oh, wow.
And I went, you got to be kidding me. You are telling me.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's kind of when I started navigating and researching, okay, what do I need to do to offer this? And it led me to the path, to the circle that you and I met in.
Yeah.
So thanks to him, it sent me down that road where I recognized I need to kind of not separate it from the Reiki, but also add it as an option for those who just want
Right.
to sit, who just want to sit with the spirit energy.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. That's how somebody from the spirit world came in and brought that navigation of how
Yeah.
that kind of worked out was very cool. I
Yeah.
didn't realize this about your with that story. So with me, when I started, so I actually started the first healing modality that I learned was reflexology.
Love it. Yeah.
And I took that because I looked at the acupuncture traditional Chinese medicine. It was going to be a massive amount of work and school and time and money and all that. And I was like, I haven't been in school like formally for a really long time. So let me take like a small bite-sized piece of, academia and then see how how I do. So that was my first start was the reflexology. And of course, when you do the reflexology, part of the thing when you're finishing it is you have to do 50 case studies. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of feet that you have to,
Yeah. Like me.
right? And at the time, we were living in our small town of Shelburne. There was like less than 3,000 people. So it was easy to, I knew a lot of people. So it was easy to, find willing participants who would, let me be a case study, have them as a case study. And I had 4 of the people that I had case studies were all people that had cancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it was I my first person that I did was actually my hairdresser at the time. She was like, small town hairdresser. She'd been there forever and ever, so she knew everybody. And we started doing the reflexology on her, and she was having like these amazing healing things happen for her. Like I was like shocked and in
Yeah.
awe myself.
Yeah.
And then because of that, she started like word of mouth. Oh, you have to come and see Jody. You have to have the reflexology. And so the first 4 people that I did that again, they all had cancer. And I remember being like, oh my God, how am I supposed to help these people? How am
Right.
I? They have a disease that their doctors can't even help them with. And now they're coming to somebody who's going to rub their feet
Yeah.
and make things better. But so that was like a big, a really
Mm.
I think for me, it was about creating faith, having
Yeah.
faith
Yeah.
around this. And interestingly enough, one of the ladies that came that had the cancer, and she was stage 4 cancer, she was a Jehovah Witness.
Mm.
And it was very interesting because the whole here was what I'm doing and here's their belief, like there were 2 different worlds, right? They were
Right. Yeah.
um, and so it was such an eye-opening experience that here was this little lady who was like showing up, for these treatments. And she actually became an acupuncture client after once I that finished that, went to school, did all that. She came and did acupuncture regularly. And so we kept her alive for quite a while with
Awesome.
her using, these energy medicine tools, which
Yeah.
and I'm sure you probably have a million stories where you've touched people's lives profoundly and
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, we know this. Your the clients that are brought to your table are brought at the time you're supposed to need them. And it's
mhm.
not always about them needing you. It's a mutual thing. We're learning from them just as equally.
Yes.
And I thought, at one point, actually, when this gentleman was referred to me, that I spoke of, the naturopath had contacted me and said, do you work with cancer patients? Are you working with cancer patients? And I thought, duh, like,
Right.
hello, of course I am.
Right.
I don't close the door on
Not
anyone.
discriminating. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're meant to come, they're meant to come.
Mhm.
And so I did work with him, of course. And I had worked over the years with others who had sometimes acute cancer and sometimes in remission. But over
Mhm.
the years, I've had experience working in that capacity. Some of my early on experience practicing with Reiki before I was able to charge and I was just able to practice and barter and get my wings and my feet wet
Mhm.
were cancer scenarios. But anyway, um, it was after working with this gentleman that I recognized why she had asked me. Because I think in some cases, we all know what we're great at, and sometimes we know more what we're not great at.
Right.
And after a series of working with him, and I ended up having a couple other clients at the same time with varying cancer ailments,
Mhm.
my days are getting too heavy.
Right.
And when I was going back to my family at the end of my day, I was just going to bed. I was
Right.
exhausted. And I
Right.
recognized that, okay, universe, I'm capable, but emotionally, this is too heavy for me at this time. I find somebody who can help these people and bring me somebody else who I'm supposed to learn from now, too, because it can be emotionally exhausting and not everybody's equipped. I was actually talking, who was it? Oh, another naturopath I was working with recently, and she said to me, Mel, I love working with cancer patients.
Right.
And she, yeah, and she just loves it from the science side of it and how she can explore what's going on. And she uses some different modalities than I work with. And I thought, wow, okay, this is cool, because knowing what we're capable of taking on and what we're not is really important.
Oh, absolutely. It's the
Yeah.
whole, having that humbleness, right? Which
Yeah.
which is hard to sometimes do because, when you step in, and I know for me, like I had patients that were having like such, remarkable success in their healings, like crazy things. And it takes a little bit of like recognizing and realizing it's not anything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that it's, all the education, all the stuff that but it's not. And I feel like his spirit was just showing me the difference of, so when you go to your family doctor, your physician, your surgeon, and any of that, it's always an outcome based, scenario, right? Somebody's going to them, I have this problem, I want this problem gone, right? And so, the tough job that the physicians have to do is they have to get rid of the problem. That's what they're supposed to do. And, often they do that by, putting a medicine on it, or putting a band-aid on it to there, it's gone. Now you can't see it. It's under
Symptom
the band-aid.
symptom elimination. Yeah.
Right. I feel like for, energy workers, when the clients show up for the work, we have this knowing that we let go of all expectation.
That's right.
So we don't, like, again, like you said, it's not an outcome that we're trying to achieve. I'm not trying to cure you of this, because that one thing that you have, that cancer or whatever your issue is, has multiple layers in it. Like cancer didn't just come into your body like this, right? It's
Yeah.
created. And so, as energy workers, I feel like when we step into it, when a good energy worker steps into it, and Mel is one of them, we have this ability to remove all resistance or need for an outcome. And I feel like because we do that, we are able to, be that flow, that channel of energy that comes in, right?
Yeah, it's so important. Just to recognize that we are simply the channel
Right.
or the open shell, the open vessel for the energy to pass through. And that can be a challenge for some people. I mean, it's a way of living, though. It's not like you can
Right.
just turn this switch on. I'm going to do this and then I'm going to go back to like crazy, chaotic, and like it's a way of life. And actually, I had a client a few years back, a student of mine. She had reached out. Can't remember what level she had just finished, but anyway, she says, "Mel, I'm having a challenge. I'm trying to figure out how to connect my Reiki life with my old life." And I said, "Let's talk. Call me."
Right.
We had a great chat. And in 2 seconds flat, she got it. I said, they're not different lives now.
Right.
You're not living one way here and one way over here. Energy work is just a way of life. It's an awareness, an awakening to the spiritual connection that we all have. And I think for her, she thought, oh my gosh, I was trying to like fit my old way of practicing in this old way. And you can't do that. It's just, we have to just let it flood in and be, and, ego always gets talked about in this. And ego sometimes gets a bad rap, but ego's healthy when it's in check.
Right.
We can
Right.
have
Yeah.
somebody who's new to the path and they think, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough to do this work. I'm not capable. Little old me over here. I'm not as good as this person and that person. And their ego is really small. And then you've got somebody who says, ha, I can do this. I'm going to heal you. I'm going to fix you. I've got this. Well, their ego's too big, right?
Right. Right.
And to do this work, you just have to be centered. You have to
Right.
be aligned. You have to just, I'm not here to heal you.
Right.
And yes, I am capable of facilitating a healing session in this moment for you. And trust that whatever healing is coming through is for the highest good of you and the
Mm-hmm.
highest purpose of what your soul is needing in this moment. And then when you go back into your life, client, you get to take responsibility and do the work on your own. The practitioner's job is done in that moment. Uh,
Right. Yeah, that's fair. I can remember one of my teachers saying to me that, when these like, big healings happen, it's often, she said it's a rarity that you're like the first person on, to lay the hands or to send the energy.
yeah,
Most times you're like number 8 or 10 or 12, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And then so for you to be able to say, "Oh, you know what? I fixed that person and helped them." No, actually, it's like the dozen of us that have been, holding space and working like, the light all together, right?
that's right. And it's funny too. It's like some of those helpers are energetic beings. Some of them are human. How many times have we worked with somebody and they said, "Oh, I this happens last week just with clients even." But how many times have we worked with somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I've been told this before. Oh yeah, I've been told this before." Oh,
Right.
but they haven't applied it. Right?
Right,
It's
right,
like,
right.
how
Oh,
many hands,
yeah.
which set of hands is going to make the switch for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
feel like that's, I fell into that path though of, I was talking the talk but not walking the walk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you say, you can't have your old life and be, but I feel like that's something that I, to this day I still struggle with. I say that, thank God and literally thank God that I have to show up for clients, and hold space for my students and do that work because my, 3D human life can be very complicated sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Life gets messy,
So true.
it does with, this the environment that we live in. And I feel like if I didn't have the work that I do have, my escape that I can go into where again it's, I have the light working through me, it saves my life.
I understand that quite well, actually. And, a couple things over the years. I mean, even in recent years, our family has experienced quite a lot of grief in the past few years. And I used to work with clients. Actually, I have a family that used to start coming to me because of loss. Now they come for healings as well, but I would read for them often. And geez, they were a young couple in their 40s, 30s and 40s. And I mean, like within a span of 5 years, lost parents on both sides, cousins, aunts, pets, you name it. And I would sit with them and I'd be in disbelief and think, oh my gosh, how are they keeping it together? Like, wow, okay, what a blessing that they're open to having readings and connect with their people. But I can't imagine. And then fast forward to the past couple of years where our family has experienced a lot of loss.
Hmm.
And at one point, it was bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was so low. I thought I couldn't feel anything.
Right.
I had to close work for a little bit because I couldn't keep my shit together.
Right.
Um, I was crying nonstop. It was just coming out of me. And I literally felt unconnected.
Mhm.
I felt, holy crap, I'm never going to do this work again. I don't
Right.
even, there's nothing out there. That's how I felt.
Right.
And I thought, oh, this is what that feels like. I
Mhm.
don't know that I've ever felt that way. And yet, this isn't an example of what clients feel like often when
Right.
they're out and they're coming for help.
Yes.
But I literally had these moments of, I don't know if I'm going to do this work again. I actually don't think there's energy out there. What am I like? I felt so disconnected.
Mhm.
And it took me back too to a time of in my younger years when I was talking about ego being too low and out of, and I would think to myself, I don't know if I'm capable of this work.
Right.
Those that do healing practice are on the path themselves, and I thought, I don't have the baggage that that person has. No wonder they're an amazing practitioner because holy mackerel, the life they've lived and the struggles they've gone through, no
Mhm.
wonder they're amazing. And same with that one over there. Look at how amazing they are. Holy, I know their history and the struggles they've had. And
Mhm.
then finally one day when I'm going through this grief the past few years, and I thought, holy crap, I've been through a lot. I never, when you're in the forest, you can't see the
Right.
trees.
Right. Yeah.
And I started thinking about all of the life changes, the events, all the
Yeah.
circumstances that have gone on in the past
Yeah.
number of years. And I thought, holy crap, I do have a lot. And now I'm depleted. And during this grief process, at one point, I was working with actually a colleague of ours. And I was sharing, he knew a little bit about everything that was going on in a nutshell, but he was our osteopath. He was giving me a treatment. And I said to him, yeah, I feel like some of the grief is lifted, and I think I'm getting ready to. I've been thinking about having a workshop,
Mhm.
coordinating a workshop. He says, I think that's great, Mel. And I said, yeah. I said, it's just a thought, though. I don't know if I'm ready yet. I don't know if I'm ready. And he said to me in that moment, not realizing how wise he is, he said, well, wouldn't a workshop and being around your community and people be the best thing for you when you're feeling this way? And I was
Absolutely.
like, I thought, gosh darn, uh, damn you. I was like, no, because I beat to my own drum. I do my own thing. I stick in
Right.
my lane. I've always been, you know, me, myself, and I kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I was waiting. And I heeded his words eventually. And I did coordinate something and had a group here. I was in tears for part of it.
Right.
But it was a good reminder on how this work is
Mhm.
so good for us,
Right.
because I needed to have that connection with people. I know
Yeah.
what my role is and that there's a place for me, and I'm meant to help facilitate others in some capacity.
Right.
And I needed to be kicked back into it a little bit because I don't know where if I would have, like if they, that saying time heals, which I think is a crock of crap. I hate
Right.
that saying, but it gives us distance, I think, or space so that we can process things and eventually come out on the other side. So I was
Mhm.
very thankful that he gave me that little snippet of advice. And
Yeah.
slowly I emerged from my dark cloud. And it's not to say that the cloud is entirely lifted. I do have, there are days and moments where, but the more I connect with my clients and work with students, and that's the piece that fills us, I think.
Yeah. And I feel like we forget that. We forget that we never ever are meant to show up at 100% all of the time because there's no
Yeah.
such thing as 100%.
Yeah.
And I feel like let me know if you agree on this. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I was saying we live in a world of like smoke and mirrors. Like,
Mhm.
everybody's online. It's a TikTok world, Snapchat world. There's a certain look of everything, and you'll see a lot of, healers, teachers, guides show up, and they show up with the light and the unicorns of the rainbow, the all of that all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they show up and then so I feel like there becomes a certain like level or status that healers are supposed to be, or you know what I mean,
Yeah.
or ascend to be. And so at any time when we're on our, and because when we are, on our own healing journey, every moment, of this journey. And so, there's a part of us that feels bad when we on our journey are in a big dip,
Yeah.
or God forbid that we're experiencing loss, even though that we know life is eternal, and
Yeah.
we know all of that stuff because working with clients. But when we're feeling lost so deep in it's, breaking our hearts open, and we just don't know how to get out of it, we feel like there's something wrong with us. We're damaged, we're broken, my gifts have been taken away, I can't show up in the light to do the work.
Yeah.
But I learned through my own, and you know this well, the last couple of years, 2 years ago, when I crashed and burnt and was like out for the count, I had to come through that whole balance of ego, balance of, all of that stuff, and be like, again, I'm forgetting myself. I don't have to show up at 100% all the time, because there's no such thing as 100%.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way of looking at it. We don't have to be 100%. And when you were going through your crises, we'll say,
Mhm.
I guess, I mean, I spoke with you throughout that time period, but I would share your story with other clients at times too. Like, at some point, if you know, we're going to hit a wall if we haven't taken care of things. And like, you did some serious work. Like,
Mhm.
imagine you didn't do that intense work that you committed to yourself at that time
Right.
frame. Where would you be today?
Right.
Had things just, so I think it's so important to recognize that we ourselves have to do the work. We're not just moonbeams and unicorns, as you say. And
Right.
that's something that's, social media, it exists. It's a blessing in many ways, but it also has its downsides in many ways. I
Right.
would
Yeah.
say I
Yeah.
struggle with it because I'm a hands-on. I'm I'm an old granny now. I like old traditional methods, hands-on. Come into my cavern and let's see what potion we can mix up. But um, there is that side of the idea or the perception that everybody's perfect. And I remember years ago, I met years ago actually, gosh, 20 years maybe. um, there was a clinic near where I worked at the time in my corporate days before I switched my hat completely and said, at the time I was doing Reiki, but I had my corporate everyday job, and I finally closed the door on the corporate stuff. But at that time I booked in with a reflexologist who I hadn't worked with ever before. I was close by the clinic, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll just try this. So I met this woman. She was lovely, wonderful, and treatment was great. We had great chats. What do you do? Da, 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 da. I shared about Reiki, and she says, oh, I've always wanted to try Reiki. I just haven't. And I thought, oh, okay, well, if you're ever up for a trade, I'm open to it.
Right.
So the next time I saw her, because I booked again, she says, you know, I'm interested in doing the trade that you talked about if you're still open to it. I said, sure. She's like, I know somebody else who does Reiki, but I never booked with them because she said, I was a little nervous because, you know, they're vegan. She says, I'm not vegan. They, practice a lifestyle that's very different than mine. And I thought, I can't do it because I don't, I'm not a hippie. I'm not this.
Right.
And she
Right.
was feeling self-conscious.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
says, but you just told me that you drink red wine. And she says, I love red wine. And I said,
Right.
well, I also swear like a trucker. And she says,
Right.
that's why I want to book with you. She said,
Right.
because it's relatable. And
Yes.
to me, to her, that was
Yes.
more grounding. And
Yeah.
she is now big. She's one of my best friends. She's one of my dearest friends.
Very
So
cool.
it's been 20 some odd years now.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's
anyway,
very cool. Yeah, absolutely. I forget this part of it because you and I are very much, old school. So like,
yeah,
we started, and I feel like it's in a, spiritual saying to make it in a modern world, because we literally, were working hands on with clients,
Yeah.
years and years and years and years ago, right? It was all word of
Hmm.
mouth. There was
That's great.
no, social media platforms. There was nothing. And we were seeing all of these, these people were coming to us, how they were finding us was obviously just word of mouth,
Yeah.
because there, or maybe every once in a while you would like splurge and run a little ad in your local newspaper. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I feel like it's part of the break in for us is hard though, because you look at all of these people who are online and it's all about the followers. It's all about the, this number on Instagram and this number on TikTok and all of this. But I got to give kudos to the old school people like us who are still, maybe we don't have 60 million followers on social media, but we still are seeing the people that are coming knocking on our doors, and we're, even now it's virtual because thanks
Yep.
COVID moved all of our stuff into the virtual world.
Yeah.
But I feel like there has to be, a pat on the back for those of us who continue to do that work and show up. And we're not showing up for the fame and fortune.
Yeah, and I think too, like what I was saying a second ago about my friend, my newfound friend, the reflexologist, and I drink wine and swear, and I'm not perfect. I show
Right.
up
Right.
very imperfect every single day.
Right.
And, you know, not everybody sees that or thinks that way, but my shit stinks too. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
sorry to say it that way, but
Yeah.
I'm just human. I remember early on when I opened my like official healing, I'm closing the other chapters of my life and I'm focusing on just this healing portion because all the signs were there. And I would have the Debbie Downers in my life who would say, "Are you sure you should do that? What if it doesn't work out? You need to keep that other thing to fall back on." And then
Right.
I would
Right.
have family members who would say, uh, who how are people going to find you? Like, who's going to drive all the way out there, right? Well,
Right.
as soon as I made the decision to close that door, this is the magical and wonderful thing about energy finds you when it's supposed to.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's when the floodgates opened. And it was, yeah, like you say, old school referral system. People would come, have a benefit from their time, and
Mhm.
share it with their people.
Mhm.
And that's how our flags got hung. And we would just keep the door. And I love that.
Right.
And being able to connect with people like yourself and others that are in our community, whether it's the virtual community or the hands on community, and share others' gifts with the people that we meet. Because I
Mhm.
believe it's a balance of everybody working together.
Yeah,
One
absolutely.
practitioner isn't necessarily the end all and be all for one person's issues. We're all a balance of everybody working together to help one soul, at a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And again, it's, some of us have different, roles in the healing journey that we have with the client, right? Each of us have a different role. And I feel like very much based on our own, experiences, very much based on our own level of healing and our healing journey, right? Because it's true, you can only really show up at the capacity of how much you've learned or grown through yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's, you know,
Yeah.
um, and so I feel like that's why, as people like you and I who very much are empaths,
Yeah.
right? We feel everybody's stuff all of the time. So, having compassionate energy and being able to hold space is, something that just comes naturally for us because it's in our DNA. It's how we're programmed for sure.
Yeah. And some days you're like, I really asked for this in this lifetime. What was I thinking?
Like today, like this week, as we've got the full moon energy, we've got the first eclipse of 2025 coming in. I've got a very small little circle of my close knit friends, and it'll always be the message of, are they trying to take us out? Are they literally trying to take us out?
Oh, it's so
So
funny.
yeah, we definitely feel all of that stuff. And I feel like it's important that we like don't just be behind the scenes on that, because that was a big balance for me in this coming out of, having to show up in full capacity in whatever state I was in. I
Yeah.
needed to do that. And so I'm sorry for the people that follow me if I don't always show up every day, full makeup and hair done and you know what
Yeah.
I mean? As in like, oh yeah, you know what? This is beautiful. The full moon's awesome and this eclipse is great. And we're like, I'm manifesting and I'm changing the world. And this is
Yeah.
no.
No. No, I want to scream and pull my hair out right now because nothing's working today. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, because Mel said to me before we were getting on, because she was having problems with it, she's like, "Are we in retrograde?" I'm like, "Yes, we're
Yeah.
Mercury is in
I know.
retrograde."
I literally said, okay, just let me find, I just need to go to my astrology people right now to see what the
Right.
heck is going on because it's a
Yeah,
couple
because
hours.
when you can feel it coming in for sure.
And when you know, you can surrender to it because,
Yeah,
you can let go of the frustration and shift your mindset in,
right.
screaming and yelling. I'm just going to embrace.
Yeah. And get out of the fear about it because I feel like, I don't think that there's an energy worker anywhere who doesn't have the life lesson of releasing fear, stored trauma. That I feel like that is like a given. It's like it's part of your passport.
Yeah.
when you when you answer the calling, you have that vibrational energy of fear within you, and you need it doesn't dissipate. It doesn't You need to learn how to transform it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And I think there's different layers of fear as well. There's some people who just exist in that state. And then there's those of us who trust to a certain degree, but maybe specific circumstances or
Mhm.
scenarios will stir up that fear.
Yeah, for sure. And also something I'm learning, and maybe I'm sure you probably would witness this with clients though. For me, you know, fear doesn't always show up as in like, oh, you seem really anxious or you're nervous or you look panicky. It
Mm,
shows up for me in like my headache. I'll have a headache
right.
or my knee will hurt or my stomach won't. That's the vibration of fear in my body. It's communicating physically, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just emotionally, which obviously we need to work through that, right? And heal it and address it.
Yeah. And I think, having the awareness, you are very aware, obviously, and in tune with you, yourself, and your body. And so many times people I'll work with who they don't have that awareness. And so they come with a hurt knee, and that knee is hurt because I have a hurt knee and
Hmm.
there's nothing else connected to it. Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, we can do energy work and we can do all the good stuff, but the knee has so many other connections to it. You and I know
Hmm.
that, um, which is one of the reasons why I am really enjoying the new microcurrent machine. I was telling you about this not too long ago that I've started working with, um, because it's using frequency, microcurrent frequency, very low amperage,
Hmm.
to affect change in the body,
Right.
and using acupuncture points, but without using needles.
Well, yeah, powerful.
Yeah, so it's and what I love about it too is that you can actually measure. So in a session, for example, we can actually measure what your meridians are doing in your body.
Hmm.
26 different meridian points we tap into. We actually get a report and a scale of what your graph looks like, and a lot of
Right.
times like this.
Right.
And once we have that chart graphed, then we can apply the frequency to the acupuncture points and to restore the balance in those meridians, and then
Right.
go back into your life.
Yeah.
And then you can come back at a next booking in a week or whatever the established time frame is and do it again, and you start to see, which is really cool, your graph change, your
Right.
meridians start to balance out, hopefully,
Yeah.
but then the pain starts to shift in the body. So
Right.
the knee issue wasn't just a knee issue.
Right.
It was a meridian. Maybe we were on the kidney meridian. Was there was, and kidney is fear. Let's go there,
Hmm.
right? Kidneys, worry, fear.
Right.
So everything's connected in the body, and not everybody recognizes that we can just, do some simple energy modality, apply it, and restore the balance in the body
Absolutely.
and
And I'm
shift
sure you
fear.
probably recognize this too. When we talk about, working with the people that have the big things like cancer, you
Mm,
know,
mhm.
that if you're just only addressing that on a purely physical level, you
Yeah.
know, your chances of coming through it are not great. They're just not. It's not.
Yeah, the
So,
physical body doesn't exist on its own.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And that's so I feel like, you know, we're coming into, and you know, people have been saying it forever and ever, you know, Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, they've been saying that, you know, frequency will be the future of medicine,
Mhm.
right? And I feel like it's always been.
I know.
There's some of us old school people we've always been using the frequency for
Yeah.
medicine, and we'll continue to definitely use it. It certainly makes our jobs easier. You know, you've got this, you know, new, you know,
Yeah,
gadget that you can use in your
that's right.
healing center. Same thing for me. You know, I'm using the AO scanner, doing the scan reports, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So there's something to be said for technology because it does come in and it does serve a greater purpose. But there still has to be that energy healer behind the wand, behind, right?
Yeah, and I think you and I chatted about this a couple of years ago because I was going through this little, energy. Everybody's talking energy now. I'm like, where have they been all these years? Like, hello.
Right.
But as is anything, right? And
Yeah.
every industry experiences these types of things where it's like, talk to Edgar Casey about this stuff. Like, there's
Right.
so many historical figures who've been practicing and on this energetic plane for so long.
Mhm.
And I was talking to you, I remember, and I was like, okay, these tools and gadgets and stuff that people are like, oh, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to balance this now. And oh, I can just add this and all will be great. And I remember
Right.
you said to me, the tools are great, Mel, but remember, they still have to do the work after. And that's where I went, light bulb went off for me. I'm like, you're right. Because you can only use any machine or whatnot to a
Yeah.
certain point. The soul within your physical body, still has to apply work when you leave that moment, that treatment, or whatever it is, or
Mhm.
whatever it is for you. You have to be doing the work. It's not
Yes.
one fix, one appointment. I'm fixed, and now I don't have to
Right,
worry.
right. Yeah,
Right?
we're not the saviors, you know, we're not the saviors. And that's a really, really important thing for our listeners to understand because, you know, just like, you know, Jacob said, I think it's a scam, mom. When you go and get this work done, it doesn't mean that you now your job is done. You
Right.
know, you have to continue doing this stuff, or you're going to end up back in the same place that you were. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a continuation, and we as healers and energy workers, we know this better than you know most because we see it, you know, in the people we work with, but we see it in our own lives, knowing that if I don't continue to do the stuff that I need to do to save my soul all the time,
Yeah.
then, you know, I know the consequences of it for sure.
Yeah.
So people can get together with you, Mel. You still see clients in person, right? You're doing and
Yep. I'm actively open in person in East Garifraxa.
it's a beautiful
Ontario.
property if
It,
you're, you know, in Ontario and you can do
it
that. But do
is.
you also do clients as well remotely? Are you still doing
Yeah.
that as well? Yeah.
Both options are available online, and
Okay.
so either or. I do have clients who travel quite a ways actually to come, just because the experience on the property is
Right.
pretty tranquil, pretty
Yes.
peaceful.
Yes.
I am biased, of course, but it's one of the reasons.
I can attest to it. I can There's something magical about Mel's property for sure.
Yeah, thank you, and I can agree to that. It is a blessing, and we recognize that we have a little piece of heaven here on earth, and I love that I'm able to share that for those that choose to come in person. But
Yeah.
remote is always an option. Yeah,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
yeah,
And then so I will make sure that I put all of Mel's links in there so you can go check out her website and you can reach out to her if you have any questions about the whole new meridian therapy that you're doing, the Reiki, all of it. Uh, and yeah, this is, you know, I want to have you back at some point because maybe we should explore like, you know, the modalities of healing and how energy
yeah.
transference works and like, you know,
Mm.
so many more goodies that we can tap in.
Yeah. I feel like there's
And
so much.
mediumship, we didn't talk much about the whole, you know, spirit world stuff, which I'm sure some of our listeners would be interested in as well. So
Yeah, I'd love to. I feel like there's so many topics we could keep going for hours actually. So it's
yes,
been great. Thank
absolutely.
you.
That's
Yeah,
so thank you so much for coming and sharing this space with us. And I'm
thank
sure
you.
that everybody's going to feel your magic through your
Oh,
frequency pouring out to everybody. So thank
th-
you. Thank you so much.
thanks, Jody. Love you lots. Love you lots.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love you too. And thank you everybody for showing up and listening. And make sure that you go and connect with Mel. I'll put all that down. Check her out. Her social media stuff will be there. She's not very active on social media because she's old school, but
I
it's
need.
all good. You know that she's doing the work. She's busy
I'm
doing
out
the
there.
work.
Yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks
uh, Thanks.
everybody.
Ciao.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Collective SOULversations podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we hope that you found our chat both inspiring and thought provoking. Your support means everything to us, and we're excited to keep this journey going with you. So make sure that you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a review and share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps us grow and connect with more wonderful listeners like you. Until next time, stay curious and keep those soulversations flowing.